Canada isn't just stepping into a new year, it's stepping into one of the most defining political years in a generation. And if you think this is going to be business as usual, think again. The global landscape is unstable. The shadow of Donald Trump still stretches across North American politics. Provincial tensions remain real. And every major party leader in Canada is about to face tests they haven't seen before. Here's the twist. While the Conservatives are tearing themselves apart, while the NDP is still trying to figure out who they are, one figure enters 2026 already in control, already steady, and already shaping the country's path. That's Mark Carney. This year isn't about theatrics, it's about leadership, and in 2026, we'll see very clearly who actually has it. Let's start with the Conservatives. They do not enter this year from a place of stability. Far from it. Instead, they're staring down a leadership review that will determine whether Pierre Polyav still has the confidence of his party.
After a tumultuous year in Canadian politics, two federal parties begin 2026 facing leadership issues. At the end of January, Conservative Party members will vote on whether Pierre Polyav should stay on as leader, as recent defections of Conservative MPs to Mark Carney's Liberals raise doubts for some.
Think about that for a second. Polyav was branded as the strong communicator, the fighter, the politician who would dominate Canadian politics. Yet here we are, entering 2026, and MPs are defecting. Senior members are uneasy, and confidence is shaky. When politicians start leaving a party instead of rallying behind its leader, it signals something much deeper than just a bad month. It's structural weakness. What really exposes this, though, is Mark Carney. Once Carney began governing with competence, with substance, with maturity, the Conservative approach, built on anger, performative confrontation, and outrage, looked small, reactive, and shallow.
The New Democrats will choose their new leader in March to replace Jagmeet Singh. Activist Abby Lewis and Alberta NDP MP Heather McPherson rank as the frontrunners in a party with sharply reduced presence in Parliament. For Carney's government, the focus in the coming year remains the ongoing trade dispute with the U.S. and the review of the Canada-U.S.-Mexico trade agreement. The three nations will all come together this summer to co-host the biggest sporting event in the world, as the effects of Trump's ongoing tariffs still punish Canadian industries such as steel, aluminum, softwood lumber, and automobiles.
Pierre Polyav built his brand on outrage. Carney built his on credibility. And in politics, credibility wins. Heading into 2026, the Conservatives are scrambling to keep their own house together rather than preparing to lead the country. Instead of shaping the national conversation, they're consumed with internal survival. For a party that once called itself inevitable, that's a dramatic reversal. And for Polyav, that reality is front and center. Meanwhile, the NDP isn't in a much stronger position. With Jagmeet Singh stepping aside, the party enters 2026 in a moment of self-redefinition. Abby Lewis and Heather McPherson are frontrunners in a leadership race, but this is fundamentally a party wrestling with its identity. Are they a bold activist movement, a pragmatic parliamentary partner? Are they rebuilding for the long term or fighting to maintain relevance right now? These questions remain unresolved, and voters tend not to gravitate toward a party that's still figuring itself out, especially when the stakes are high. The reality is that Canadians facing global uncertainty, economic strain, and domestic pressures tend to lean toward the leader who appears stable and capable. And right now, that's Carney. Here's where things get interesting.
Carney will continue to try to get a handle on affordability, with housing and grocery prices continuing to rise despite a slowing of the overall inflation rate. Carney is betting heavily on so-called nation-building infrastructure projects, like small modular nuclear reactors in Darlington, a planned high-speed train between Toronto and Quebec City, and, potentially, a new oil pipeline from Alberta to the British Columbia coast, scheduled for referral to the government's major project office this spring, if a financial backer can be found. Progress on the pipeline demanded by Alberta's premier seen as key to quelling separatist sentiments in Western Canada that grew during Justin Trudeau's time in power. National unity will also be on the ballot when Quebecers vote in a provincial election scheduled for October or earlier. The Parti Québécois holds a wide lead in public opinion polling and promises another referendum on Quebec separation sometime during its first mandate. another threat to the Canadian Federation after failed attempts to separate in 1980 and 1995. Canada could get relief on U.S. tariffs from a court case challenging their legality, and possibly from the U.S. midterm elections in November, which could see Republicans lose control of Congress and repudiate Trump's approach to trade.
2026 isn't going to be defined by partisan bickering alone. Real-world consequences, economic pressure, trade disputes, domestic affordability, and national unity are what will shape the year. Carney's background, his discipline, and his expertise give him a tangible advantage. Let's talk about the U.S. Trump's tariffs on steel, aluminum, autos, and lumber aren't just political theater. They hit Canadian industries directly. They affect supply chains, workers, and economic resilience. A reckless or reactive government would risk escalating these conflicts or taking losses without negotiation. Carney, with his experience leading global financial institutions and navigating crises, is built for this kind of challenge. He doesn't rely on slogans, he relies on strategy. At home, affordability continues to dominate. Housing prices, groceries, the cost of living, these aren't abstract concerns. Carney's approach focuses on structural solutions, not symbolic gestures. Nation-building projects like small modular nuclear reactors in Darlington, a high-speed rail line between Toronto and Quebec City, and a potential Alberta to BC pipeline are ambitious long-term initiatives that shape Canada's future. These aren't flashy short-term wins. They're systems-level solutions designed to stabilize the country. National unity is also on the line. Quebec faces an election this year, with separatist sentiment simmering, and Western provinces continue to voice frustration over representation and fairness. A prime minister in 2026 needs to listen, communicate, and negotiate without turning every disagreement into a spectacle. Carney's calm, consultative leadership style fits the moment. He treats provinces as partners, not adversaries, which matters more than ever. When you contrast that with the other parties, the difference is striking. Conservatives are focused inward, questioning their leader. The NDP is focused inward, redefining itself. The U.S. remains unpredictable. Global markets are unstable. Affordability demands real attention. Meanwhile, Carney is steady, competent, and strategically navigating every challenge. And this isn't theory. When the Canadian government faced pressure during the budget rollout, it didn't crumble. It held. That kind of resilience is rare, and it shows the real character of leadership. Expect 2026 to be a year where Carney sets the tone. Competence over chaos. Diplomacy over spectacle. Thoughtful policy over reactionary theatrics. Conservatives will continue to wrestle with internal fractures. The NDP will focus inward as they choose a new leader. But the issues that matter, international trade, economic stability, national unity, will fall squarely on Carney's shoulders. Canada isn't rudderless this year. It's guided by a leader who understands global systems, respects democratic institutions, values unity, and leads with a seriousness matching the stakes ahead. And that is what sets Mark Carney apart in 2026. Thanks for being part of the Canada Today community. Your support, engagement, and passion make this channel what it is. Wishing you and your families a happy new year, full of strength, clarity, and hope for Canada. If you haven't already, subscribe so we can continue navigating this journey together.